was 19, I worked as a busboy at a restaurant.
Number 1. When I was 19, I worked as a busboy at this little restaurant. Though it was a small town, this restaurant definitely was the most popular in town. Probably because of how greasy our pizza was. I mean, some people like it, some people don't. I guess it's up to personal preference. Being the neck-bearded shut-in I was beforehand, working at this restaurant allowed me to really expand my social group. Most of the bussers that were hired were post-high school kids, and I ended up befriending this guy that I'll simply refer to as Nate. Nate really helped me find my place in my group of friends. So one night, I'm working until 8 p.m., which is pretty early considering that our shifts end normally around 11 p.m. or even midnight. And due to my town being a small urban area, I always just walked home after work. I would always grab a drink by this little gas station as I walk home, since it's about a 20-minute walk. Help me unwind from work. As I leave the gas station, Nate and his friends were pulling up and we all made some small talk. They invited me to come chill at Nate's, and since I literally had no plans but to browse 4chan and play League of Legends, I decided to go. We arrived and sat down, shooting the shit. Eventually, the one guy that I had a few classes with pulls out some weed and asks if we want to smoke. I'll refer to him as Chase. I never tried before, but I didn't want to be the odd one out, so I said sure. I don't have anything against it, and I was far from feeling pressured. I just never got the opportunity to try it up until then. So we step outside, as Chase makes a little bowl out of aluminum foil. Yeah, it's trashy, but fuck it. We were 19 years old, and hey, it works. There were a total of 4 of us. Nate, Chase, me, and their other friend, Alex. I took a hit and ended up wheezing like crazy, and mumbled out something about how I hadn't smoked in a while. We all passed it around several times before heading back inside. Nothing much really happened as we all just sat around and talked, but I definitely felt the munchies come on. Eventually, I asked if we could head down to the local burger joint, and apparently everyone else felt the munchies kick in, because everyone's eyes lit up. By the time we got there, I can absolutely say that I was stupid high. Everything was intensely funny, and I couldn't even speak without laughing at what I was saying. We ordered food and sat down, again just talking away. After the meal was done, we decided to grab some milkshakes to go, and so we waited. I don't know what the 3 of them were talking about because something else had caught my attention. The sound of a crying baby. We were still inside the restaurant, keep in mind, so it wasn't a strange environment to hear a baby crying. But that's not the issue. No, what caught my attention was that the baby's sobs seemed to be on repeat, like a loop. The same pitch, same fluctuation, same hiccups, and same period of time in between each sob. Yes, I know this was my first time smoking, but I know that this wasn't just my brain playing tricks, and I can say that with confidence, merely because Chase looks at me and goes, "You hear that too?" Alex goes to grab his shake and tells us all of ours were ready as well. We get up and head to the counter, where we see a man, a woman, and a stroller with what I assumed was where the crying was coming from. We quickly walked back to our table, as Nate was still in the bathroom. "The baby sounds like it's on a loop," I said. Chase looked like he was turning pale, but was trying to laugh it off to keep his cool. "It's cries. They don't fucking sound right," he said. I remember that specifically. How he said that the baby doesn't sound right. Alex brushed us off, but I could tell even he was slightly bothered by this all. So we stood there as we just listened to this baby cry. The same sob, the same pitch, the same everything, over and over and over again. And suddenly, the baby just stopped. Chase mumbled something, and I looked up to see the parents racing out of the restaurant and into their car outside. The cashier that was ringing them up just had this wide-eyed expression. Nate walked out of the bathroom right after everything had just happened, and we left. Alex started to play it off that we were just high, and it's possible. But it's possible he could have just been in denial. But it's weird that Chase heard exactly what I heard, and Alex even seemed to hear it as well. And if being high is the case, it still doesn't explain why the family booked it out of the restaurant once the baby stopped crying, or why the cashier looked like she saw something. There's many holes in all of the logic. It just became one of those can't explain situations, and it still racks at my brains on some nights. Number 2. Due to Nate and I living in the same town, working the same job, and even working the same closing shifts, we became close friends pretty quickly. We'd either hang out for a typical hour or two, or we would hang out until like 4 a.m., just exploring the town and everything in between it. So one night we walked up to our old high school road, just for nostalgia's sakes. Now the schools were all kept very close by, in their own little section of town. An elementary school, a middle school, an intermediate school, and then the high school. They all practically shared the same portion of land, meaning that all of these schools also shared the same exact road and the same exact forest behind them. As we chatted about old crushes and friendships that were no longer, we ended up noticing a pair of headlights coming from behind us. At first, we assumed it was a cop, for obvious reasons. 2 19-year-olds hanging out near school buildings at 1 in the morning? Come on. We faced cops quite often because of it being a small town, and because of us skating until late at night, so this wasn't anything new to us. However, we noticed the headlights were not coming to a stop as they came towards us, and that the car was using halogen lights, aka the brightest fucking lights on Earth. "Sure is taking a while for this one to come up to us," I said. "Yeah, like we're right here. They know who we are by this point," Nate said back. And honestly, he was right. Majority of the cops who talked to us actually did know us, and I feel that sometimes they just wanted to pull us over to have a chat out of boredom. So, we waited and waited, and then the headlights shut off. I don't mean the car turned away or that it turned off. I mean that whoever was in the car purposely shut off the lights as they began to approach us. So there we were, completely surrounded by pitch black, our eyes trying to readjust to the dark from the halogen bulbs practically blinding us. "What the fuck is going on?" I yelled before Nate quickly interrupted me. "Quick, run into the trees up the hill," he whispered. Due to the car's lights being shut off and not a single light post was near us, we were practically invisible in the night, due to us wearing black. We raced up the hill near the elementary school, hid behind some trees, and waited for whoever this was to drive away. All of a sudden, we hear the engine rev real loud, and the tires screech for a moment before the car races up the road. I don't know if the driver thought we were still on the road, but I just remember thinking that if we were down there, if we were hit, it would have killed us. As I stated earlier, the schools all shared the same land, meaning that they all shared the same road, with the high school ending in a parking lot that would be used as a cul-de-sac. This means that the driver would be returning down the road, and at the speed they were going, it'll be any second now. So we stayed behind the trees, trying not to make a sound. The car comes back down the road, still in the same insane speeding manner, and all the while, their headlights were still turned off. The car makes one more lap, and by this point, our eyes had been adjusted to the darkness. We watched as the car stopped near the high school parking lot and faced its lights towards the tree line. Nate immediately yelled to get down, and I'm so thankful he did, because those headlights flashed on. It seemed like it illuminated the entire forest, and if we hadn't gotten down, we would have instantly been seen. So, in this moment, we're covered by bushes and thick branches, and the car is just sitting there. It began to feel like a disturbing waiting game, almost like they knew that we were in the forest. Finally, we watch as the lights pull away, and the car drives off, leaving the road and heading back to town. Because of this, for years, halogen light bulbs gave me such a chilling feeling every time I was on the highway, And before you ask, we did have our cell phones on us, but I don't really know why we didn't call the cops. There's no good reasoning behind it. Number 3. My ex-girlfriend's mother used to be heavily into the Wiccan religion. Unfortunately, she never took it seriously as a religion, but instead just made it out to be this new, cool, hip thing. She would buy these books off of Amazon, and then, suddenly, claim to be a witch. She even bought books about how to perform summoning spells and how to craft potions. And I'm not kidding when I say that she even hooked up with dudes in graveyards. Something about the soil, I don't fucking know. Her entire attitude towards spirituality resulted in something that, I can fortunately say, didn't directly happen to me. You see, my ex would visit her mom from time to time, and her mom would always claim to perform a cleanse of the house. So one month, she plans a visit to go see her family, and I prep myself for those 2 weeks to myself, since her mother lives several states away. The 2 weeks fly by and she comes back home. I give her a hug and kiss and ask her the typical questions, asking how everyone was and all of that stuff. And she just sighs. Normally this means drama happened, which is extremely common. But the way she sighed this time was much heavier. I ask her what's up, and she goes on to explain the following. Her mother performed a cleanse as she was on her way down, hitching a ride with her stepdad and siblings. Apparently her mom had texted her saying something along the lines of, "Something isn't right about this cleanse." Her mom just says she'll explain when she gets there. They arrive, and her mom is suddenly playing dumb, trying to change the topic or just forgetting what she was talking about. She takes a pause and she looks at me. "Babe, whatever the fuck she was trying to do, she didn't do it right." She said that when her mom cleansed the house with a calming spell or something like that, the second she stopped chanting, there was a loud bang from her bedroom door. They didn't own pets at the time, and she was alone by herself when this happened. Apparently when she told my ex this, she just laughed it off afterwards, like it was no big deal. I stated earlier that my ex got a ride with her stepdad, who claimed on that very first few nights, he was consistently restless. He couldn't sleep for more than 30 minutes without feeling dread. And finally, one night, he said that he could see something stare at him from their bedroom closet. There wasn't any description to it, other than it being a large, shadowy figure. At first, he brushed off the experience as sleep paralysis, until he realized he was fully awake and functional. He rose from the bed and stared back at whatever was in the closet, before it seemingly faded away. But once it faded away, he felt all the dread and fear inside of him fade away, and he was able to fall back asleep. I later on asked him about the experience, and I'll never forget him mentioning that it was almost like it was there to drain him of his energy, his memories, and he was afraid that if it were there for any longer, maybe his own life. Once my ex was home, it seemed that things only got worse for the family. Her brother and sister would message her constantly about updates in the house. I won't go into full personal details for privacy's sake, but something happened that made the relationship between her mom and stepdad fall apart completely. Suddenly, they were always angry at each other, or angry in general, and would constantly fight. They ended up getting 2 dogs, and within a month, both dogs got a severe case of mange. If you don't know what mange is, it's a nest of mites that live on a host, and they feed off of their skin and fur. If it's not treated properly, and within reasonable timing, the host could face serious health conditions. One of the dogs ended up going almost completely bald. Finally, the mange had been cured, and I'm not kidding when I say that a week later, the whole house was apparently infested with fleas, to the point where you could see them bouncing through the carpets. Sure, it's a string of shitty luck, but what if it wasn't? What if her mother had actually fucked with spirits, and her immaturity resulted in bad karma? Or perhaps even a curse. Just real quick, first of all, I don't really know how to say thank you. It's is still a lot to me every day. I think I check my analytics several times a day just to see all of you guys comment and everything. All of your thumbs up. I mean, I literally read all of your comments. I'll even go through like, the held for review comments, or even flag as inappropriate comments. Because sometimes, and actually, I want to say 99% of the time, even your compliments somehow get held for review. So, I guess I just want to say thank you. When I started off timesix, it was... I don't really know what it was. I like the idea of narrating stories, but I never consider myself a narrator. I still don't. I still consider myself some guy just reading stories. Trying to fight off the text-to-speech bullshit. Which is why I always say that more people should do this. More people should just read more green texts. I'm really just completely blown away by the support that I get from this. I never thought that timesix would ever reach the number that it's at now. Hell, we're kind of teetering over to 12,000. I don't think we'll reach 12,000 before the end of 2021, but I don't really care. What matters is I have you guys. What matters is every time I upload a video, you guys comment and talk about how much you love it, or talk about how some of the stories are just stupid, and I promise you, I agree. At no point am I thinking, all of these are bangers. There's so many times where I'll choose a story specifically because I just want to hear you guys just tear it apart. That's like one of my favorite things. It's just, I'll read a story and in my mind I'm like, God, this is so dumb, or this doesn't make any sense. And then a part of me goes, oh, I can't wait to read the comments on this. And you guys never seem to disappoint. But more importantly, the love and support you've showed me, showed timesix, showed this channel, showed everything. It means a lot. I know it's the cliche YouTube thing to say, but I'm serious. Anyway, I guess I'll stop being all sappy and shit. Happy 3 years old, everybody. Have a great night.